This is a speech given by Lubavitcher Rebbe, put into pamphlet form, the essay form. The speech was given in the end of 1991, Tavshin Nun Beit. Okay, this is a little bit of a summary of what we're going to talk about. But as usual, the Rebbe is talking about the most important topic in the world, and that is Moshiach. And the Rebbe is trying to explain to us how Moshiach is basically already here, and that we just have to open up our eyes, and we're going to see how this is relevant to this week's Torah portion. Okay, ready? Here we go. All right, here we go. All right, this is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in the end of 1991, Tavshin Nun Beit. And it talks about the arrival and the importance of Mashiach. Here we go. Yes. Okay, now in this month of Kislev, the end of the month of Kislev begins the holiday of Chanukah. Before that, there's the Chabad holiday, which, because Chabad has taken it on itself to bring Mashiach, so it basically is a holiday for all the Jewish people, and the Jewish people are the ones that bring blessing to all mankind. So it's a holiday for all mankind, which I guess soon all mankind will celebrate it when Mashiach comes here. That's the 19th day of Kislev. The 19th day of Kislev was when the first Rebbe of Chabad got out of prison. He was imprisoned by his enemies, religious Jews, and he was under the threat of death, was put into the worst the area of the prison, and miraculously he got out. Miraculously, those who put him into prison, the Russian government realized that he was a holy person, a great person. It's an amazing story, but nevertheless they let him out of prison. That's on Yud Tet Kislev. And when he got out on Yud Tet Kislev, the first Rebbe of Chabad, then that was basically opened up the doors for advertising Chassidut in a very wide way. Before that, the book, the Tanya, had been written a couple of years before, but Chabad was very, quiet, kept to itself. God will take care of it. And after the Rebbe got out, so it was a sign that God will take care of it through us. And the Rebbe started to advertise Chassidut. Several years later, after that, the second Rebbe of Chabad, the son of the first Rebbe, called the Mittler Rebbe, his name was Dvar. He was put into prison also. And he was released on the 10th day of Kislev. This is a few years after the first Rebbe was. He was released on the 10th. Okay. So the second Rebbe of Chabad, he was born and he passed away on the 9th day of Kislev. So it comes out that on the 9th day of Kislev, the second Rebbe of Chabad was born and years later passed away. And then on the 19th day of Kislev, which that happened chronologically beforehand, the first all right, so this is a speech given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1991, Tavshin Nun Beit, and it's going to talk about the month of Kislev. And like I just finished saying, I hope this got recorded because it showed that it stopped. On the 9th day of Kislev, the second Rebbe of Chabad was born, and years later he passed away. The same date. The Rebbe is going to take issue with that. On the 10th day of Kislev, which was in the middle of his life, he was released from prison. He was put into prison also by his enemies. He was released from prison. And 19th day of Kislev, the first Rebbe of Chabad was released from prison. That was earlier. Okay, let's go. I don't know when this is going to stop again. Regarding to the second Rebbe of Chabad, Bal Yom HaYoleret, he is the one whose birthday is that his birthday and the day of his passing away was on Tet Kislev. We found something original, that the day that he was born and the day that he passed away are on the same exact date. What does that got to do anything? We'll see. There's also another novelty that immediately the date after he was born and that he was going to pass away was the 10th day of Kislev. That's the day that he got out of prison. Now, this is based on the principle that everything that happens in the world is important, and especially what happens to important people, and especially what happens to important Jews, and especially what happens to the most important Jews, that they are the leaders of the generation, so to speak. So let's see. Al-Pi Yadua, that's known, Shemoa de Ashana, that the special dates, the dates of the year, the holidays of the year, they have a special connection to the Torah portion in which they occur. So therefore, the Torah portion of this week is Vayetze. And Parshat Vayishlach, that's going to be afterwards. That we begin to pray, we begin to read after the Mincha prayer of the Shabbat. That the Chag Geula on this year will be on the first day of Parshas Vayishlach. How is it going to be with us? I don't know. It's going to be somewhere around there. Maybe the second day. Anyway, we can find something attached, something relevant to this. Let's see, here we go. We got a calendar over here. And here we are, the 10th day. No, it's not, doesn't work that way. This year, the 9th day of Kislev falls on Monday night. And the 10th day is on Tuesday night. Okay, so not like when the Rebbe was there, it fell on Sunday and Monday. So we can find something relevant to the day of birth and the day of passing away of the second Rebbe of Chabad. Now, the second Rebbe of Chabad, he took the ideas of the first Rebbe and as expanded as they were, he expanded them even more. He expanded them even more. And he also dealt with the simple people, very much simple people. He established places of farming, etc. So he and the main point is the Hotzim Izeh to bring out from this a special learning about the in our generation, which is talking about the true redemption of the Jewish people and consequently the whole world by means of Moshiach. Like we said so many times before, that now everything has been finished, all the necessary preparations and suffering, etc., has been finished, and all we have to do now is just accept the face of Moshiach actually. Good. How do you explain the suffering that happened after? This was spoken by the Rebbe 30 years ago. All the suffering that happened afterwards, I don't know. But nevertheless, the Rebbe said that even back then everything has been done. How much more so now? The world is already ready. The Chiddush, the novelty in the fact that the birth day of the second Rebbe of Chabad and the day that he passed away And these, the second Rebbe of the Chabad, he was a big tzaddik. He was the leader of the generation. And that, so the rabbis bring, what's the importance of a person being born and passing away on the same date? It says about Moses, that Moses says, Ben Me'av Esrim Shana Anochi Hayom. Moses said that I am 120 years old today. Omer Gemara, the Gemara says, Ma Tam Lomer Hayom. What does it mean today? I am 100 years today. Say I'm 120 years old. Today, it says, today I have completed exactly 120 years old. This comes to teach you that God sits and he reckons, and he fills the years of tzaddikim from day to day, from month to month. Like it says, it's mispar yamecha amalei. Like it says, the number of your days I will fill. It's a sentence in Mishpatim, in one of the blessings that God gives to the Jews. I'm sorry for all these interruptions. It's not it's just some sort of a technical thing in the Zoom. Okay. So the Rebbe is saying, we can learn something about Moshiach from the fact that the second Rebbe of Chabad was born and passed away on the same date. What can we learn from it? Shleimus Avoda, the complete service of a tzaddik, is spiritual, a thing which apparently is not attached to the day that he's born. Why is that important at all? Like it's known that the life of a tzaddik, they're not physical life, but it's spiritual life, faith, fear, and love of God. That's the whole essence of what a tzaddik is. The fact that he's in the world, he's just sort of passing through, right? Tzaddikim, they're people that the world has no negative effect on them whatsoever. The whole connection is only to God. So what difference does it make what day he's born, what day he passed away? That's physical things. That's mundane stuff. But tzaddikim, they're interested only in spiritual, godly things. And the second Rebbe of Chabad, he passed away, and on the same day that he was born, on his birthday, right? So what do we care about that? What's important? So it must be understood that by a tzaddik, it could be the completion of his service, even if his days were not filled, miyom liyom. Like we see by most of the tzaddikim. Very rare is it that tzaddikim are born and pass away on the same date. Right? Mostly it doesn't happen that way. It happened by Moses, good, but it didn't happen by everybody else. Right? Yesh lomar, we can say that the complete service of a tzaddik is a totally pure Jew that serves God every day, every moment of his life. That's a tzaddik. Who kasher shleimot. I'm sorry for all these jumps. What can I do? It's just the Zoom connection just goes off and goes away. So we're asking a question. We're talking about Moshiach. Everything we can learn something about Moshiach. Here we have in this month the birthday and the date of passing away of the second Rebbe of Chabad, called the Mittler Rebbe. And he was born on the 9th day of Kislev, and he passed away years later on that same exact date. It says the Rebbe, what can we learn from that? It says, well, that same thing happened with Moses. Moses, it says the day that he passed away was Zion Adar, and the same day that was his birthday, the same thing that passed away. So we see that these tzaddikim, that their life was complete. So the Rebbe, that doesn't make any sense. That there was only two isolated examples. Most tzaddikim in the world are total tzaddikim. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and it doesn't say that they passed away on the same day that they were born. They were passed away. They were born. Rare is the case with them. So what can we learn from the fact that they passed away on the same day that they were born regarding to Mashiach? We can say maybe we can say like this, that the service of a tzaddik is when this spiritual completion that he has reached in his life, this also is reflected in the physical world. Shleimut b'zman avodato, a complete service of God in days, in years, physical date, Like the rabbis say, Yodei Hashem Yemei Tamimim, like it says that God knows the days of the pure ones. Just like they are pure, also their days are pure. What about the other tzaddikim? We'll see. What can we learn from this? Right? We'll see. The reason for this is, why is there importance to the date that they were born? Because the ultimate completion of a person's service of Torah and commandments of a Jew, that this is the service of a tzaddik. A tzaddik is a person that he serves God constantly, every moment of his life. That's the purpose is, mitpatet bazeh is stressed by this, that he refines and he purifies and refines his physical body in such a way that there's nothing separate in his life that the service of God does not touch them. In other words, the service of God touches every physical aspect of his life. In shum hefsek, there's no separation whatsoever between his soul and his body, between his spiritual and his physical. But all of the details of his life are permeated with the spirit of his soul, until the physical world is made secondary and surrendered, harmonious with his soul and his spirit. They make the soul primary. Okay. I don't know if you're experiencing these delays, but I certainly am, and I apologize for the trouble. Okay, it says all of the days of their life. Until the physical becomes separate, we said that before, right? In a way that all of his physical life just becomes a vessel and a garment, like a vehicle that that godliness comes through. Godliness comes through. Kalomar, in other words. I think in simple English, this is called genius. Genius is that a person, she is expressing something which is above normal, total above normal, right? You have 1,000 people that they learn piano, and one person, they become a genius. This guy's a genius. His fingers are not faster than anybody else. Something happens, he has a certain knack. It's in sports, it's in art, it's in everything, right? Something happens that it's just a power from above them comes through them. It's something that's not like above human. It's spiritual. Well, Judaism wants to make it that everyone in the world experiences the source of this genius, the source of being a hero, that is true humanity, is that you are a vehicle for godliness, for harmony, beauty, wisdom. Kolomar, that's why the letter Yud in God's name is called wisdom, because it's a thing it's not done through you. You just make a vessel for it, and it comes through it. In other words, even though that the life of a tzaddik, they're not physical, but they're spiritual, nevertheless, the whole idea of the Jewish people is, I'm sorry, it's like being in a hurry to go somewhere and you catch every red light. Every 5 minutes, the Zoom, it disconnects or whatever it does. I don't know, but whatever it is, it's not good. Okay. So it says, tzaddikim, the whole thing of tzaddikim is, they're supposed to be in the world. That's why in Judaism, all of the leaders of Judaism, they're all married and they all have children. And people that don't have children, they're very disappointed. And they pray for children. It says Abraham prayed for children, and Yitzchak prayed for children. And did everything that he could to pray for them. We're going to have Yaakov with his two wives and with the children. They had problems with children. Because the main thing of Judaism is to be in the world, but that the world should be made into a vessel for godliness, beginning with the person's body. It should be a vessel for godliness. It should be a vessel. And even more, that life, this spreading out of life, should be united with, and the spiritual should be in a way that it becomes totally one. Not just like a genius what a genius is, music comes through him, art comes through him, that godliness comes through constantly, right? These people with music comes once in a while. If you Adam Echad, one person, that his spiritual life is expressed in completely through his physical. So in other words, without the physical, somehow or other, his spiritual is not complete. Because the spiritual, it's like an artist that hasn't got a piano, right? A musician that hasn't got an instrument, or a painter without a brush. He could have all this genius, whatever he wants, but it has to be expressed through. It's open. Shechayim Basarim, the physical flesh, is not something extra to his soul. Legabi Shlemus B'chayim Aruchneim, to his spiritual. In other words, the physical body enhances his spirituality. Chayim Basarim, the physical light. That's why you got wow. I mean, this has never happened before, but it certainly is happening now to make up for all the times that it didn't happen before. Right? Every 5 minutes, the thing cuts off. Okay. But only by means of being in the physical world can a tzaddik really complete his spiritual service in the world. Therefore, God sits and he fills the years of tzaddikim from day to day, since that the completion of the service of a tzaddik, it has to permeate and it is revealed through his physical world, his physical body. So therefore, the whole category of the physical world, Hagashmi Murkav Mizman. Okay, the physical world is, generally speaking, two things: time and place. And this time and place is divided up into seconds, minutes, hours, but days, and the days of the year. Like the rabbis say, Mishabachar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when God chose the world, so he chose time. The beginning, the first month of the physical year is Tishrei. He chose the physical world. He chose time. That time is connected, intrinsically connected with the physical world, time. But when he chose the Jewish people, he also chose another time. That time was the month of Nisan, when he took the Jews out of Egypt. So the creation of the world, that's in Tishrei. And the taking of the Jews out of Egypt, that's 6 months later in Nisan. So what do we see? That the world, days and time, is connected to the physical world. This is not the physical world. But when God took the Jews out of Egypt, this is when God chose the Jewish people. That's a different aspect of the world. So if so, the physical Rosh Hashanah, the physical New Year's Day, this is in Tishrei. The spiritual New Year's Day, this is in Nisan, when God took the Jews out of Egypt. So we see that there's two dates in Judaism. One date in time is Tishrei, when God created the world. Another date is the spiritual, when God took the Jews, but they're both dates in the year. They're both times of the year, physical. The intention, the spiritual intention, why God created the world, that is expressed in the middle of the year. That's Nisan. The whole idea of a year, Shana, is talking about Shinui, time. Lashon Mishana Mekifa V'kolelet Batocho. And this idea, it includes inside of it all of the different times of the year, different seasons, etc. Therefore, this is the 1 year expresses the completion of service of a tzaddik. A year means that he went through all of the different changes, and despite all these changes, he brought godliness into each and every one of them. And this Shagam Shenotav Tamimim, even though that his years are complete, says this like tzaddikim are complete, their years are complete. It says that God sits and he fills their years from day to day. that every single day a tzaddik uses completely by means of refining and making a garment for that day and filling it up properly so that no day is empty. Because if one day is empty, so to speak, a garment is empty for his soul. So therefore, God gives everybody a certain amount of days of life, and each day to be used properly, and that fills the purpose of the person being in the world, physical world. The days of a person are already set to him according to the garments which he needs to be put into them. It says the garments of the world to come. Also, the completion of a tzaddik is spiritual. It is spiritual and is physical. The days and the years, physically, if they come out to be equal, that's what the sign of the spiritual days and the physical days. The days he finishes his spiritual life and the physical life are equal. This shows a certain degree of purity in the world. Just like the tzaddikim are pure, also their days and their life is pure. It's complete. And we can say that since that the language of the Gemara is that God sits and he fills the days of the tzaddikim from day to day, it doesn't say in this any conditions whatsoever about the tzaddikim. God fills them automatically. So we have to say that this is by every tzaddik spiritually. Spiritually, every tzaddik, a person that serves God all the time, that the day that he passes away is the completion physically of his life. Even after those who pass away on a different date when his birthday is. But it's understood from this that this completion is when this expresses itself in the physical also. That in addition to the completion, which is by every tzaddik, rarely, but occasionally you find that this completion in a revealed way is when it's exactly corresponding the physical and the spiritual. But occasionally it comes out that there are tzaddikim that actually physically it comes out to be the same day. This completion, it was first of all by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It says that that in Nisan they were born, and that the month of Nisan they passed away. By Moses, also the same thing. The day that he passed away was exactly the same date that he was born. The 7th day of Adar, he passed away, and the 7th day of Adar, he was born. In addition to this, that his years were full, 120 days, that's what God promised after Noah, and people would live 120 days. Since that he was a shepherd of the Jewish people, and Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Moses, they were the first shepherds of all of the Jewish people, and especially Moses, that he was called the faithful shepherd of all the Jewish people. This was expressed by them, a completion of the service of a tzaddik. This is how it is that their days were completed. Similarly, it is also by the second Rebbe of Chabad. Moshe, he was the Moses of his generation. His day that he was born and the day that he passed away were the same exact dates. Let's do one more paragraph. I hope it doesn't get cut off here. I'm sorry, but there's been every 5 minutes, it interrupts, it stops. So I hope that explains all these delays. Okay. The explanation is, let's explain this according to the parsha of the week. It says Vayesh, Vayetze, and next week is Vayishlach. Both of them are talking about Jacob. Here, this week's Torah portion, Yaakov meets up with Lavan, and next week he meets up with Esav, his brother, who's been trying to kill him looking around to kill him for. Sheba'em Motzim, we find something very surprising. The main story in the Torah about the service of Yaakov is last week in Parshas Toldot. There it's talking about how Yaakov was in the house of his father, in the land of Israel, Beersheba. That's Yaakov's birth. In this week's Torah portion, Vayetze, is talking about Yaakov went out of Israel. He went to a terrible place called Haran. And then Yaakov went out from Beersheba to Haran. Haran, it says, there's the blazing anger of God in the world. It was a place where everything they did was just made God angry. It was the opposite of what God wanted. Where did Yaakov go? He went to Lavan. Lavan was called Lavan the cheater, Arami, the crooked Lavan. Im called Inyanim, with all the things which were not good were attached to this, namely the biggest descent that could possibly be. It says that Yaakov was afraid. This week's Torah portion, it says, we read that just a few minutes ago. The Yaakov said, how awesome is this place? This is the gate of heaven. Remember that he had to have the trust of God. God said, don't worry, go down to Haran. I'll be with you. I'll help you. I'll protect you. Even more, specifically in Haran, the worst place in the world, that's where Yaakov got married. That's where he gave birth to all of his children. That's where he raised his children in this terrible environment. He founded all the Jewish people in the worst place in the world. Even after Yaakov finished his service by Lavan in Haran, and then he wanted to go back home to Israel, like he wanted the Shavti v'Shalom Beis Avi, like God promised him. And afterwards, he was commanded by God, go to the land of your fathers. Instead of Yaakov actually did what he fulfilled what God told him to and go back to Israel, take of him miyad, go back to the land of Israel. But nevertheless, all of a sudden comes Esav, and Esav prevents him from going back to Israel. The Yaakov comes and he sends as to send messengers to Esav, that's the Vayishlach, the place of Edom, and all the details which come after that he had to fight with the angel and he had to this. And only after that, the Torah tells us about how Yaakov went back to the land of his fathers. So if we see a very surprising thing. The main story of the service of Yaakov Avinu, of Jacob, our father, let's see if we can get that pointer over here. The main story about Yaakov is one of the fathers of Judaism. He's a vehicle for godliness. In fact, he's the choice of the fathers. That the reason that Abraham and Isaac lived was only to give birth to Yaakov. We're called Bnei Yisrael. We're not called Bnei Yitzchak, Bnei Yaakov. We're called Bnei Yisrael. Yaakov is Yisrael. So it should have been that Yaakov, Yisrael, everything he did should be holy in the land of Israel. Only a little bit, tell a little bit about what he did with Esav and Lavan. But the main thing is we're a holy nation. The story about Yaakov should have been mostly what happened in the land of Israel. What he did when he was with Avram, with Yitzchak, like Avram and Yitzchak did. What's the explanation? The explanation is that what Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did, that's a sign for us. So the story that it tells about Yaakov Avinu with Lavan, and next week about Esav, this must be a very, very important message for us, for all of us, all generations. And we're going to talk about what that is, God willing, tomorrow.